Hey everybody! So I made a part 2 and a part 1. I combined them together over the course of like a week's time. And then I kind of got to the end, what I felt like was a good end to the message, but I have still a bunch more stuff I want to say. So I thought, well, maybe I'll make another message because that one's getting kind of long. And then you can just look forward to this message whenever I get to finishing it. Maybe this will just be a little snippet plus another snippet plus another snippet message, or maybe it'll just be a complete message in and of itself. I don't know. So I was going to go channel the deceased future version of myself, okay? Let's just start there. But I was also talking about in that video, which you should totally watch it if you haven't, I talked about a lot of very important, interesting things. But I also mentioned that I was going to go to that original time when I was connected with my future self before I experienced her die. I gave her a proper burial, which I didn't tell you guys that. And I spread her ashes out across what was that reality. And then she went to heaven, and I carried her heart within my heart, and she merged with my higher self, and I felt a new relationship with me, okay? And so let's see what she's like, okay? What do we want to do first? I'm going to listen to the collective here. Let's hear what you guys want me to do first. Should I go to my future self that hasn't died yet, or should I go to my future self that died? Which one? Nobody knows. Let's just go to the future self that hasn't died yet. No. It's already echoing to go to the deceased version. All right, here we go. She's by a body of water, not very large. There is a flower in her hand. It's sort of like small, picked flower that you might find around a pond. And she's looking into the water for a really long time, and she has nothing really to say because she hasn't had enough opportunity to reflect on the meaning of it all. And it's interesting because I could say the word she hasn't had enough time, but we're looking at an infinite space. So when you die and you go beyond this earth version of time or this human version of time, you have infinite time. So all versions of time have happened. So how could she not have enough opportunity to reflect? Because on some level, she is still in the experience of recently passing away, reflecting on everything that she's endured for I don't know what time represents to her. And that's the part of me that I'm visiting. And she looks up at me, and I see that she has no face. And she hands me this flower, which is very small. It's very basic. She wants to know if I know why she has no face. She stands with the same weird outfit on. It's like sheets and blankets turned into a makeshift dress with a rope. She has a long like piece of wood it's like a branch of a tree. That's her staff. She says, I don't answer the question why she has no face. I'm just analyzing what she looks like, and I'm looking into her. When I look into her, I see her face as a mirror. And in her face is memories of Earth, and it's like, it's really sad, to be honest. It's our worst case scenario. She's shows me things that you wouldn't even believe. She says that in her memories are where people have access to needles, okay? And they're encouraged to inject themselves with whatever the next thing is. And she shows me, you're encouraged to wear this mask. Now you're encouraged to take this nasal swab yourself, even though the box says that only a professional should be doing this. Well, you can do it. That's why you have access to it. And now here you have access to giving yourself whatever vaccines you want to give yourself. Like, they're creating more and more and more conveniences to the point that you don't know what's going on anymore. You're just doing what you're told. And if you don't do what you're told, then certain other things are going to happen. What's interesting is there's a certain psychology of the people that will give themselves this shot out of fear and concern, and what they think is doing the right thing for everybody around them are the ones that are going to police those who don't do it, because they will not feel comfortable with people who don't follow the rules. They feel comfortable only with those people who follow the rules. So they're creating their own police by knowing the human race is separated between those who follow rules and those who do not. And those who do not will start to separate themselves further and further and further and further. And it'll be quite obvious who is going to follow the rules and who is not. And those who follow the rules can become violent. But they don't realize that they're actually holding the shackles. They're carrying the shackles. But which reality would you prefer? Would you rather be the one that follows the rules or the one that doesn't? And she shows me that the human race is very tired and it's losing its ability. Like, I see tongues are disappearing and people are becoming gray and they're losing the spirit from their eyes. She shows me like parts of the earth have fallen to ashes, literally. Like I'm standing, I don't even know where this is, but in all directions, everything is burnt to the ground and it's all ash. It's like as big as the Sahara Desert is whole portions of the earth is complete ash. I'm telling you, there's like 5 mega spots that are complete ash. And people don't have the will to fight at all. And some people are given special favors if they choose to be on the right team, okay? And it starts to become divided between who wants to be on team I follow the rules, who wants to be on team I don't follow the rules, and who wants to be on the team that I'm actually above these other two, and I tell you what to do, and I get special favors for that. Also is it's like these other levels, but there's so many that are in despair. She says, when you start to know what it's like to forget what it's like to not have a house anymore, to not have a car. That's what she says, that when you start to know what it's like to not be able to remember what it was like to have a house or a car, and now you don't have a house or a car. It's like she's showing me that how strange reality becomes, And this is in her face. This is in her memories. This is a future part of me that passed away. And I took her heart and put it into my chest, and now I'm the next version of herself, okay? Going into the next version of the future of the exact same epicenter of time. Will we do it differently? Why do I keep coming back to try to come up with a solution? Maybe it's okay if things become desecrated. Maybe it's like I hear the echo of my soul. It's like I can't ever stop. I can't ever give up. It's just the way that I am. I just can't ever stop trying. And I do keep coming back because I care that much, because my soul cares. She shows me that there's a weird memory too, where there's I don't understand this man's face, but he has a knife and he cuts her in the eye. Out of nowhere, he's like running and attacks this version of me and cuts one of her eyes. And it's like there isn't a hospital to go to. You literally have to cut the eye out yourself and try to heal the wound yourself. Like you break a bone, you don't have a doctor to go to figure out how to set that. You have to figure out what you're going to do about it. You have to cut your own arm off or your own leg off. You're going to have to deal with this. This is why my grandpa was telling me about this experience about survival. It's interesting because it's a solution to depression and anxiety. But to what extreme degree do we want to endure survival? A 3-day experience in the woods where it's up to you whether you're going to find your own food or not is still pretty easygoing in comparison to not remembering what it's like to have a house or a car anymore because it's been so long. And what it takes to survive in that kind of world. And there's still people that want to follow the rules just to have a little crumb of something, to feel somehow a little bit more than somebody who doesn't want to follow along with this game. She says, I'm sorry if I'm not ready to, it's like go to the next level of heaven because I need time to really digest the meaning of all of this. I instantly slap her across the face and I say, you know better than that. I just do, okay? It's just, I'm kind of aggressive about this. And I tell her, you know better than that. And I say, you're going to forevermore, for all eternity, be by this stupid pond with your stupid flower, digesting this for the rest of all eternity. You're going to have to let this go. You're going to have to be proud of who you are and what you went through and the sorrowful way it all went so that you can actually transition to the next level of heaven. Otherwise, it's going to feel like this forevermore. She says that it's odd that she cannot do that. I say, then you're holding on to the part of you that hasn't died yet. And I'm somehow a part of all of you. And I go to the future self that hasn't died yet. And I see that the unending trauma and nightmare of what she survives. It's like post-traumatic stress for the soul. And she can't ever seem to get out of what is too many nightmares and not enough time to heal from this. And she's showing me that knife in her own eye, and it was one version of the last straw. One version of the last straw. Because she shows me how many straws that broke the camel's back in her life, and this was yet again another straw that broke the camel's back for her. It's like she died yet again, but she is still alive. I am hearing from my higher self to remind all of you of something that I was shown. This was really important that I forgot to tell you. I was shown that God made a pathway for 2 directions, okay? Because there had to be both had to be explored. One would be the inevitable demonic path, okay? The worst case scenario. The worst case scenario came first. That's what I was shown. That this part of me traveled the path of hell. Because the human race had to know that future. We had to know that future. And it was the worst of 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 the worst futures. And the fact that I got to talk to that part of me that was still enduring, and it is what it is, how this time thing works. But I got to hold her heart and give her a proper burial and set her free. It showed me that I am on the path of what could only be defined as the other path. The angelic version. The darkest version had to come first in order for us to get it out of our system. All hell has to come out of our system. All the infection and all the worst of the worst of the worst, all the greatest nightmares had to come out of our system, so we would always forever remember in our human race, somewhere in time, the book and the story of how it actually went. It already happened in the worst possible way. So, now that we know that story, okay? It's already happening all over again. We're already starting at that part where we are going to start walking down the worst case scenario path. We're already starting to do it again. So, I can only conclude, because there's infinite versions of pathways, we might be on the same demonic path and we haven't gotten to the quantum leap yet, to the angelic path yet, because that also exists. Or there only is one other path, and that is this one. She really hates the fact that she had to lose that eye. She's still angry about it, and then I go back to the deceased part of her, and she says she can't ever stop enduring what can only be post-traumatic stress of that life, does not ever leave her soul, and that it will require multitudes of lifetimes in order to heal how many times she died in that life in her heart and soul. And I say, I'm giving you a face. She says no, she prefers her appearance to not have a face. I'm going to go to my higher self now. And I'm going to leave all of this behind. My higher self is communing with lots of higher selves. And this still isn't source level, because source level is complete peace and serenity, and nobody knows nothing about nothing. Like, we're all at peace, we're all serene, we're all harmonious. And anything that happened, past, present, future, all versions of time have already happened and have not happened, and everything is in harmony. So it's like complete freedom from any and all things, and complete compassion and understanding of any and all things without any judgment whatsoever. Okay, it's really hard to be grounded in the human body when you're in source, because nothing matters. Like, bathing doesn't matter. It just, if you want to blow all your money on Starbucks or something, it doesn't matter. Like, you're free to do whatever you want. So it's not like but you're in this blissful, happy place where you're completely free. But you have to be grounded and in a rhythm. Like, you have to have a grounded sensation. That's why being human is such a complex experience. So we're talking about she says every human being needs to ask themselves, what is their role in this lifetime? What are you committed to? And not committed to gains or losses. It's committed to when it comes to your heart, okay? She says we're always on the epicenter of heaven on earth. We are always existing in that place. We are always existing in the epicenter of heaven on earth. Therefore, there is heaven on earth. Therefore, we will always have those of us who interpret and understand that, and we'll always have those of us who know that there is hell on earth, who will interpret and understand that, because we're all books of all versions of time that have ever taken place, have already taken place, and we are all intersecting with all these versions. Earth is a library of information, of revelation, of discovery and empowerment. Every single person on earth is a walking library, and we have access to all versions of time and experience. it's interesting because so many of us are ready to enter the doorway of heaven on earth. And it's interesting riddles about everything. And I'm just pausing. And what I choose to do for myself is choose to learn how to not criticize or want anything to be better than what it is, to just let things be exactly as they are. And when you do that, whether it looks like heaven or feels like heaven, it doesn't matter, because that is what heaven is. When you rejoice in what you have, and even rejoice in what you have not, doesn't really exist. And you can't, you can always represent a voice, an idea, a belief system. Everybody will, everybody does. And she shows me how many voices are trying to make a difference, to make an improvement, to impact people with certain powers, to change the decision making that would be better for everybody. It shows me that only you will know how to follow your own heart. And the journey is the treasure. The journey is the treasure. So, I'm going to let go of literally everything. And I want to tell you guys something else that was very interesting. This isn't meant to be like a bah humbug. I'm wearing black like I'm at a funeral. It's not meant to be a funeral, okay? It's meant to be a celebration. I was introduced to a video that I absolutely loved, and I'll try to remember to put a link in the description. It's about a prophecy. It's like a Hopi Indian prophecy. It was so refreshing to listen to. And I want to say, I just clicked the link, and I want to say that this was a recording that was done maybe several decades ago. And it was just so enriching to hear this. It was just so enriching to hear this, because it was talking about the 4 races, and it was talking about tablets that are 10,000 years old that were given to each of the 4 races. So we have the black, the yellow, the white, the red races, and what each of the races, the gift that they were given. And it was like the black race was given the mysteries of water, that they would get 10,000 years to explore the mysteries of water, and that when the families would come together, that we would learn from the black race about the mysteries of water. And the yellow race would be given access to the mysteries of air and breath, and and the red race would be given the gift of the mysteries of the earth and plants, and the white race would be given the mysteries of fire. And that what was interesting is the white race was going to use the mysteries of fire to create what is like trains and cars and airplanes, to help to connect the 4 races, and that we would become a family, and we would be able to share all of the mysteries of what we had learned with one another. And I thought it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard. And there's obviously discussion, because there's prophecies about, if we cannot come together as a family, what would be the karmic impact, or what would end up happening. And it's kind of prophecies about World War I or World War II or World War III even potentially. And if we can't learn how to come together as a family in each of the 4 races. And I thought it also was interesting because Joe had always told me that his calling was to bring the 4 races together, and he had this drum that had the exact same, the white, the yellow, the black, the red, on the drum. And I'd never heard of this. I didn't really understand it until I listened to that message. And so I got to reflecting on if each of the races has a gift, that gift can be used for good or for bad. So if the white race was given the gift of fire to bring the races together, couldn't that same white race bring the families together and then imprison them, And so each of the races would have the greatest good and the greatest evil of their own gift, And I thought, wow, I don't know, I've just been reflecting on this without much other value to share other than this. How do we bring these 4 races together? We have to value each race for the goodness of what it is. The red race, the white race, the yellow race, the black race. We have to value each and every one of our family members, our families. We have to see that we are all family here. We have to value our families, our family members. The word minority kept hitting me really hard, and I'm so sick of that stinking word minority, because it's a convenient term to give appreciation to those who are less than. I don't want to define anybody as less than, because there is no such thing as less than. If we say that less than exists, if minorities then exist, and minorities need to have more in order to be more than they are, otherwise they're a minority, that is complete psychological manipulation right there. There are no minorities. And I don't even want to talk about minority versus majority. I just want those words to go completely away. I want there to be families. These are our family members. And not a single one of these family members is, in my mind, a minority. They are of the utmost value. Every single family member of our earth is of the utmost value. But if we don't even need to have the word value, because we don't need to define anything as having or not having, but everybody exists to be a part of this family. Do you see how we leave behind that assessment? We become kind of a bonded in a neutral love, a love that is balanced, because it is not defined as less than, therefore needing something more in order to have more than. Somebody else feels irritated because then they're getting these incentives and I'm not, and I matter too, and blah, blah, blah. It's creating divide, creating separation, creating psychological despair. We have to leave that crap behind, because that's what it is. Is it possible that there's those of us who, and I know I'm kind of bouncing back to original reflection, is that there are those of us who know, why would I still be at the epicenter of time here on earth? If this epicenter of time, because all times exist simultaneously, this epicenter of time, so that there would be those of us who know the future earth of heaven, and those of us who know the path that the earth of hell, and those of us who know all the paths in between, are all simultaneously existing in oneness with each other. And what epicenter of earth am I trying to reach along with everybody else? And what does somebody believe is what creates a good world, is taking away free will and creating biological robotic human slaves? Is another version, it's like constantly dealing with this assessment. But what if time is this circular thing? So it's not past and present and future, but it's going around and around, existing and overlapping within and around itself. And what if this is all meant to go bust and we ascend to the next timeline of all versions of Earth, to the next development of learning that all versions of Earth are rejoicing in? Or what if we take out all versions of Earth because we don't need them anymore, because we can exist in just one harmonious state? What if this circulation of time is what's creating so much echo and distortion of what is right and wrong, and the confusion of truth and misinformation and blah, blah, blah? Because the echo of all times are all happening in this epicenter that needs to go bust so we can reach a harmonious oneness, instead of enduring the wobbling of echoing of all versions of Earth, to just ascend to one harmonious experience. All times will always be remembered, and every version of time will always be remembered, and we carry the memories even of the future within us. We carry the memories even of the future within us. That's how these prophecies would even be able to be understood, because those who had existed as those elders to interpret those prophecies would have had versions of themselves in those futures that would have understood it, not just because they were channeling their great, wise ancestors, but because they could also say that they themselves was a great wise ancestor of that prophecy. But this is going to happen somehow. It's inevitable, because God must know God's own self as its own harmonious self, not as the self in pain, but as the self in healing. God must also know God's own self as God's self in healing, which means everybody will eventually, even in this present moment, experience oneness with that true light. And so again, I'm going to the deceased version of myself, of the future me, and I'm embracing her as the me that has ascended to the God's, knowing God's own self in healing, so that she too can heal with me as the ascended version of herself that endured the original path of hell, coming back to help her from what appears to be the past as yet the next version of the future. So I'm giving her my face, which would be her own, and I'm giving her my eyes to heal that trauma. And I'm giving her my clothes, and I'm giving her my memories. And I'm giving her an opportunity to know me, know herself in this time. Which tells me then that we can truly exist in every version of divine future truth, that the prophecies of the family, the four races coming together, and we live in peace now, sharing in the wisdoms with one another. That is going to take place. We're going to know that in our version of a lifetime. I feel strongly of this. But I have to do my due diligence to know and acknowledge that it's okay if the way we don't want things to be can be the way that things are. It's okay if the way things aren't the way we want them to be, but it's okay to be then okay with the way things are. It's better to be more empowered by the genuine raw truth than to live in a fantasy. Do you understand what I'm saying? If you were to ask yourself if your day-to-day conversations that circulate around in your head are of fantasy, or the way you want things to be, and the way you don't like the way things are, or if you're able to genuinely get grounded in the way things are and accept it, are you doing that? I hear that, again, I want to be grounded in the way things are. I don't want to be grounded in freaking fantasy that everything's going to be hunky-dory and it's going to be our greatest dream come true. I want to live in reality, okay? And I want to live in the raw reality that it really can become like that it is become like that. I am existing in that reality. So I do feel strongly that that is going to, that's my divine truth. I'm going to have that reality. So you can decide which one you want to live in, but that I'm going to have that. But I'm going to be happy with the way things are right now, no matter what happens in the future. Doesn't matter, because I want to live in the present. And that is the harmonious epicenter where everything comes into oneness. And we don't need to know the end of that story. Is we find peace or we find hell. Then we just live in the story of life itself. You see? All right. That's all I had to share. That'll give you something to think about. Thank you guys for being a part of this. I don't know what's going to come next, but I'm sure I'll be making another video to explore something I've been thinking about. Before I go, I will tell you, I've been really reflecting on technology and the human being becoming it's like a robotic being, and transferring of souls into a robot body without judgment of that, because I don't know how you are of humanity. You lose your humanity when you no longer choose your own body. You choose a different body that is better than the one that you have. You define it as a robot body. You are no longer of humanity. Have you evolved then into the next level of what isn't humanity? You could say is the next level of humanity is a robotic society. But I'm really intrigued by this, and I'm not saying that this is just an offshoot of the tree of life. Like, it's just one of the many branches of the tree of life that I'm curious about. So I really want to kind of explore that in some future message. All right. Have an amazing day, you guys. Thanks for watching.